Alright squad, we've got another video coming in hot, and it's an MMORPG, but this one's not from 2018, not even close. It actually came out in 2001, and that's certainly not going to generate a lot of interest from you guys, but what might is the curiosity of why this game is still running. People are still playing, so maybe we should be too, and this video will hopefully tell you if that's the case. The game is Anarchy Online. Woo. Okay, so here's the deal. We're going in blind. I don't know anything about this game other than the graphics haven't held up well, but don't get me started on how the early 2000s games beat the shit out of this modern era of games by a long shot. Anarchy Online came out before World of Warcraft. I still thought girls had cooties and ate Dunkaroos for breakfast, lunch, and dinner when this released. So yeah, I'm a completely fresh player. I don't know anything about Anarchy, but I realize because of its age, it's probably not going to be an easy game to get into. But I'm determined to dive in and help you guys on your quest to find your new digital home. Sidebar, since starting this video, I've put 27 hours into Anarchy Online, so don't fret. This isn't just another video covering a player's experience in one of the many horribly boring MMO noob islands. I made it a bit further than that. Sidebar over. The first few things that'll run through your mind once you get in game is, what the hell? Why am I doing this? Why is this interface so nasty? Please tell me you can Spark Notes the text of this game. Nope. That was me, literally the first time I played this game. Uninstalled it real quick, but I watched a video of AO on the YouTubes a few days later from a player who has clearly made it far into the content and knows what he's doing, and I booted Anarchy back up in search of those greener pastures, determined to give it a fair shot. And since doing so, I can confidently say I made the right call, and I encourage you guys to push past that initial feeling of, this game plays like turd. As usual, I'm gonna break this experience that followed down into the pros, the cons, and the neutrals. As a wise post once said, they say they like nerds, that means they like attractive people in glasses. Don't break out the Yu-Gi-Oh cards just yet. So on that note, let's move on with the pros. Just remember, MMORPGs are games meant to be played for dozens, if not hundreds of hours, and this is just my impressions of the first 27 hours. And Dr. Goose prescribes that you play it for yourself. Pro number 1. So the first thing that drew me in was not the graphics, shocker. It was the music of Anarchy Online. The ambient sci-fi sounds, the combat track that kicks in when your face is getting kicked in, it's all pretty well done, and I generally play one of those epic music playlists while questing in MMOs, but I actually just left AO's audio up and tried to let it immerse me as much as I could, and pick up for the lack of immersion that one might feel from the visuals. And the cool thing is, it actually worked. I noticed like an hour in, the graphics weren't really bothering me anymore. It's weird, I looked at these graphics and was like, ew, freaking gross. You guys are probably doing the same. But when you actually play the game, it doesn't take long for them to not only feel like kind of a non-factor, but they also become kind of likable in a way, and I think the music has a lot to do with that. As a graphics snob, this was a really bizarre feeling to kind of overcome that initial, oh my gosh, ew, feeling. And what also really helped keep me going is the population. Let's put it this way, I played Riders of Icarus, which came out in 2016, about 30 minutes before playing this game. Obviously, it didn't work out. And I have seen more players running around in this 17-year-old game in the noob zone than I have in Icarus in its noob zone. So this is obviously my next pro. The AO community just seems really great, really helpfut. Oh wow, that's mighty kind of you. Oh, thank you. Yeah, gosh, can't really see where I'm going now. Okay, stop! Enough! Get out of my face! Oh wait, guys, I think I just need one more set of shoulder pads. I strongly recommend you guys hop into the AO Discord channel because they're probably sick of me now, but they sure didn't show it. I think I asked them for help on like 3 different quests from the noob zone. So the quest says, bring Antonio's adaptation factory to Stan. And Stanley, I really want to, man. I don't want your grade 7 science project in my backpack, okay? And see, look, right here, Stanley. This is all you're asking for, Stanley. So we click this little check mark to finish the quest, and why are you giving this to me? Because it's right there, Stanley, you diaper taint. I've been stuck on this stupid quest for 45 minutes, and I'm tired of it, Stanley. I'm tired of it. Okay, Stanley, we're both reasonable men. Let's say I pop open my little wallet here, give you a couple of space bucks. I think we're gonna feel real good about that. I can't even bribe him to take his own shit! So after an hour of investigating, submitting a support ticket, popping a couple of advans, and harassing the whole Anarchy Online Discord population, it turns out our friend Stanley here doesn't want the only item he's asking for. Stanley's like every girlfriend I've had who says they want something which is not actually what they want because they don't know what they want. And then you get in trouble because you should have known what they really wanted even though they didn't know, you know? Oh my gosh, finally done with that stupid quest. And the advans have kicked in, so we're doing alright. Thanks, Stanley, for your... Watch your back. You watch your back, bitch! And before my IQ gets called into question here, this game isn't a total handholder. It's like a semi-handholder, like maybe 2 fingers committed. And this applies to quests you run and the game as a whole. And seriously, the community has been so freaking helpful, and I'm slowly getting all 1,000 of my questions answered because I have an endless amount right now. The reason this game isn't as clear as other MMOs is, generally you have to start a class and you just level up like every other player playing any other class, and you just get handed the skills and stat increases by the game, and the progression is very straightforward and simple. You don't have to worry much about leveling up your character other than trying to figure out what gear has the best stats. This game, holy shit, just use the noob chat channels, join the Discord, join the forum, make friends, subscribe to my channel, join a guild, just do it all. Because this game is as confusing as driving with the steering wheel on the right side of the car. It's the wrong side. And y'all Europeans know it, I know you do. Completely unrelated story, I crashed my car in Europe last summer. While I don't know how this game stacks up to EVE Online in terms of PvP, AO's character progression style really reminds me of EVE's. So how it works is, you have abilities. You get to add some points to those abilities when you level, and these abilities tie into all the skills listed below them. For instance, if I want to level up run speed, instead of hitting the treadmill, I can just apply points to agility, stamina, or strength. How helpful! But you don't have an infinite amount of IP points, which is what you use to level these up. So it's hard to determine what skills you should be increasing, and getting the help of other players is pretty much essential to making sure your experience isn't the worst. The other thing that had me by the balls was the size of this world and the theme of it. That is, this futuristic, neo-dystopian, light cyberpunk setting, all of which are elements I am low-key obsessed with. You can only imagine my reaction to Cyberpunk 2077, oh my gosh. And with so few MMORPGs out there that both have a sci-fi setting and are good games, good meaning fun gameplay without having to fork over pay to win money, there's very few options that cater to this kind of setting. This is a primary reason I tried AO. I've played WildStar, Star Wars Online, Star Trek Online, and EVE Online, and while I had a good run with WildStar and EVE Online, I wouldn't play them again, and the other two I didn't enjoy as much as I hoped. So while Anarchy Online hasn't been my dream MMO by any means, it's definitely captured my interest and done a solid job of feeding my sci-fi craving. And for you lore buffs, I know they've released a fatty book on the story behind the planet of Rubica, and I read up on some of the lore myself, and there's a lot here for you guys to get caught up in. So, more points towards immersion. And lastly, the combat in my first couple dozen hours was a roller coaster, and the highs were pretty great. While in general, I don't think the combat holds up at all to any of the other MMOs I've played, there were definitely some moments when I started getting into a rhythm of acquiring the right gear, weapons, and boosts, then going out to test said equipment, and it was really awesome seeing my character essentially turn into a powerhouse against enemies I would stove my face in before. So while the combat itself isn't exhilarating by any means, the preparation is a pretty fun step, and seeing the payoff of getting skills to a high enough level to equip a piece of gear, which instantly resulted in my fighting performance to be significantly enhanced, that was a pretty good feeling. Like I said, Anarchy doesn't make progression as easy as other MMORPGs, so learning your character and taking the time to study up on things, then seeing the positive results from that time you committed, well, you feel like a smart cookie. And as someone who's been told I'm dumb my whole life, I guess I can't. Combat is pretty boring, let's just get right into it, guns blazing, much unlike this game, along the lines of old school RuneScape exciting, and kind of like Knights of the Old Republic. So I played a soldier, I know, some cookie cutter bullshit right there! So the lack of skills I could use made me feel like I have no control over my character's ability to perform well in combat, and let's put it this way, what I would do is begin attacking an NPC, alt-tab out of the game and browse YouTube until I heard my character stop firing his gun, then I'd tab into Anarchy Online again, attack a mob, and rinse and repeat. This wasn't always the case, but at least with my class there's an auto attack and 2 skills, one being burst and the other being full auto, each of which I could cast every 45 seconds or so, even later in the game with a much better assault rifle. I've double checked with veteran players that there's not more options for my character for a while aside from getting a perk or 2, and it sounds like other classes could have access to a couple more skills at this point, but yeah, so far the combat gameplay has been the weakest I've experienced in an MMO. I know this changes later in the game, but just as of right now, you just kind of click on an enemy, begin your auto attack, and hope for the best, hope you can kill them. The real fun, like mentioned before, comes in how you prep before going into these combat situations, but once you're in them, there's little you can do to influence the outcome. This is just my experience playing a soldier in the first 27 hours, and I've heard this game gets difficult as hell down the stretch in higher levels. So just know going in, it'll probably take a long time before you get to that engaging action point that you see from experienced players in the videos. This is by far my biggest complaint with the game so far, and the truth is I don't even know if I'm allowed to be angry at the game for this problem because it came out like 2 decades ago. I feel like I'm picking on a toddler right now. And on that note, we'll very hesitantly talk about con number 2. While the leveling system is deep, getting the XP to earn those levels can feel really grindy. And one of the ways you'll quickly start feeling weighed down by the grind is the combat gameplay itself doesn't offer much in the way of excitement in this newer character stage. So if the combat isn't fun, it's even more of a chore to go through that process of killing mob after mob. I mean, all these older games are grindy, so it's understandable that it's the driving element of the gameplay, but in a lot of other MMOs, at low levels you generally get to a new zone every like 5 to 10 levels, and that change is refreshing enough because you're not looking at the same old trees and rocks for a dozen hours. That's all you kinda need to fuel yourself through the grind. So in Anarchy Online, to make sure I was progressing in an efficient way, I checked with a few seasoned players on what kind of activities a low-level player should engage in, and they all said, "Subway, bro!"
No, not that Subway, you dummy, the other one!
Okay. This is awesome!
Hey man, you got any money on you?
No? Though the grind of making tuna and chicken teriyaki sandwiches isn't far off from killing mobs for hours in this almost equally as depressing place, when I finally got to level 25, I desperately hightailed it out of the subway, going from misery to pure joy, excited to experience something new, greener pastures, only to get my shit kicked so far up my anus it tickled my uvula. Next con. It's not necessarily a con, but if you like MMOs offering all their content for free, then Ruby Ka may never be more than a silly word to you, because a lot of the down-the-line gameplay, like from Anarchy Online's expansions, is only available if you get a subscription. And while this beautifully textured dildo hat might be incentive enough for a guy like me, I don't think these random reward objects are worth it to the general population. I mean, if the dildo hat doesn't win you over, then this should do it. And we've arrived at the neutrals. Graphics, goes without saying, they didn't age well. They actually remind me of Morrowind, but obviously in a sci-fi setting. But I mean, we all know Morrowind hasn't held up too well visually over the years, and it's still a banger to play. I don't want to get into the habit of adding graphics as a note in my impressions videos because you can literally see them and decide for yourself, but I thought it was worth doing so for AO because they actually kinda grow on you, as I mentioned before. So I don't think it would be wise to do what I did and judge the graphics to the point where I held off playing the game for a year. Neutral, number 2. The Eve-like leveling system may not be for everybody. It definitely has that sandbox style to it in the sense that you don't start playing a class with a clear vision of where your character will end up, unlike in theme park MMOs. Instead, you have a limited number of points you have to focus on, maybe 1 to 2 dozen skills, to create a character that may be completely unique to another player of the same class. Neutral number 3. There's not really much in the way of quests from my experience. You'll get some when beginning of the game on Noob Island, but after that I only found mission terminals that give randomized objectives for some XP and loot. And aside from that, my whole experience in the subway was just killing mobs. Not for a quest, not for an instanced objective, I was just killing enemy NPCs and using that XP to level. For people that enjoy the very clear-cut questing MMOs that kind of lead you from zone to zone and have a storyline that streamlines the side quests and progression, Anarchy Online might be a bit of an adjustment for you. If you look up the quests in the game, you'll see that there aren't many if we don't include the randomized ones from the mission terminals. And now for the closing thoughts. At the start of this journey, I knew Anarchy Online would be an uphill battle to get really invested in. I thought if I dedicated 25 hours, I'd at least break through the grindy start that these old MMOs, as well as many new ones, are notorious for, and get a taste of why this game is considered great to those who have kept it alive for almost 2 decades. But alas, in the time I spent with AO, I didn't really break through that grindy beginner phase, but instead I got a taste of the complexity of the leveling system and an intriguing, if not incredibly dated, sci-fi game world that has way more enthusiastic strippers than Mass Effects. And I met about half a dozen players who were eager to help me on my leveling journey, and I expect this amazing community would do the same for you. This, along with the depth in character development, is ultimately what would keep me playing, as it serves as a guarantee that this level of detail and progression is here for a reason, and a simple YouTube search will clarify it. Both the PvE and PvP become quite challenging in the higher levels, requiring solid team play and committing your IP to the right skills to perform well. I do believe Anarchy Online is worth trying, even considering all the MMORPGs that have come after it, and especially because of the slow few years this genre has had in terms of quality releases. So in conclusion, AO has aged like a fine cheese, except there's that one spot with mold on it, and if you just eat around it, you should be fine and not get shotgun diarrhea. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you'll be trying this game or have any questions at all, and consider sticking around for future content. I love making these informative and kinda goofy videos, so all the love is appreciated. If you're interested in what you saw but are worried about the combat or anything else, there's some amazing YouTubers that almost exclusively upload Anarchy content, so just look the game up and you'll be able to see content from later in the game, and I'll leave some helpful links in the description. Alright, drop a comment or hit me up on Twitter. Thank you so much for watching and take care.